So my dad used to be the least politically correct real estate broker on the planet. And what he would used to say to me was, Brian, if you're a girl at the prom and you want to get asked to dance, you don't want to have a whole bunch of acne on your face. So if you ask for closing costs in this market, that's like a bunch of acne. For you guys that got on early, what type of issues do you want to talk about right now? Issues you're having with your business, things you want to learn about. Of course, I always got stuff to talk about, but I want to make sure you guys, it's always better when you guys steal the show with issues that you're having and stuff you want to bring up. So anybody have anything?
My question is, how do you stay motivated to keep getting better without feeling like you're being ungrateful, I guess? Does that make any sense?
How do you stay motivated to keep getting better without feeling like you're ungrateful? Can you give me an example, like specifically?
I just feel like every year I'm improving, and I'm thankful. I feel blessed, but I'm not satisfied. I want more. But I'm like, sometimes I feel guilty, like I'm being ungrateful of where I'm going right now, where I'm at right now. But at the same time, I want to be better. I'm not satisfied. Yeah,
man, that is a really, really good issue, believe it or not. That issue getting screwed up in that feeling has precipitated some of the most difficult times of my life, where, you're here and you want to get up here, right? So there's this slope that you need to go up. I don't want to be satisfied here, so I want to keep that drive that drives me up to here, right? But I also, as I'm moving up that path, I want to be happy that I'm here in the middle. Like I want to be grateful for that. And I want to be proud of the fact that I've moved from the bottom to the middle. But I also don't want to lose my drive that's pushing me towards my goal up here. And quite frankly, even when I get up here to this goal, it's going to keep going because we're probably going to have new goals after that. And there's an old concept that's been used, I think, in every industry in the world, and that's called progress, not perfection. You always want to celebrate progress and focus on making forward progress. You're never going to hit perfection ever. But you always want to keep chasing it. And I'm going to bring in something I don't usually do, but I'm going to bring in kind of a religious analogy. And boy, did I get in a lot of trouble for saying this once. I said in front of a large crowd of people, you can't ever be real estate Jesus. And I'm not sure why I got in trouble, but apparently that was offensive. But what I mean by that is, in the Christian religion, Jesus is perfect, and we all strive to be him. But you're never going to be him. You're always going to have some sin in you, right? But we're always at least trying to better ourselves in that image, and we're never going to get there, but we're always trying to improve ourselves to get there, right? That's how you're going to be in real estate too, Fonzie. You're never going to be perfect. You're always going to have to get better. I don't care who you're modeling your career after, what top producer you would like to be. Once you become that top producer, you will want more. You'll either want more business, more income, more life balance. There'll be something you could improve on to get a little bit closer to real estate Jesus. But you're never going to be real estate Jesus because it's impossible to be real estate Jesus. Does that make sense? Yeah. There's always going to be something missing. The closest thing to real estate Jesus we have is that orca whale of choice. I mean, that is the closest thing to it. But I'm pretty convinced that's not real. But it could be. It could be something that Troy posed for.
It's not a tame whale, I'll have you know. Okay?
You harness the power of a wild orca.
A wild orca. Okay, I just got on him. I was in a suit one day, swimming.
With a gun.
I had my gun and my flag, and I didn't know what was going to happen, and I saw this orca.
Does that make sense, Fonzie? So you don't really have a choice, because when you say, hey, I don't want to feel ungrateful because I'm doing better every year, I want you to celebrate the progress. So you're always glasses half full that way. You're always going to celebrate the progress because you're never going to get perfection. There's always going to be a portion of your glass to some degree that's empty. I don't care if you hit all your goals right now. The minute you hit them all, you're going to want more. As humans, we need to always improve. That's why the old business adage is, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Okay.
Because there's always something more, whether it be more money, more time with family, more interesting, more responsibility, more growth, whatever that is that you want, more life balance, whatever that is you want more of. it's always going to be there. So if you're hell bent on perfection anyway, I'm telling you, it doesn't really exist. You're never going to be real estate Jesus. That's the idea. Okay. Does that help, Fonzie?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So man, celebrate the successes and just be grateful you've had them. Focus on how you move up each year like you have, and be very grateful of that. Be very positive with that. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Spencer.
Hi.
Hi.
I just had to shove it in really quickly just in case someone else started talking. So I was like,
nice. Good. It's like a buzzer.
So my question is really regarding, so I work more on the buyer side, is buyers, when it comes to their closing costs, get really confused that they're their own closing costs. And it always ends up then I'm trying to explain to them, like, when they're like, yeah, we'll make a full price offer, just ask for them to pay closing costs. And I'm like, well, that's not really a full price offer. And I really try to go in being like, and especially now in advance, like in our market, that it's so competitive, but then they're still like, I'm speaking Chinese or something, because that happens a lot with my buyers, that they don't understand that. And trying to just, I don't know if there's something better that I could say, or,
Sure.
That conversation.
Anybody want to chime in on that one? Curiously, out there.
I've had a lot of that too. So the way I start, and I think it helps a lot of people understand it. I was like, that's like kind of explaining that that's their cost for taking the loan out. So kind of explain that, hey, the sellers have their own closing costs. This is your cost for taking out the loan. So technically, the seller's already paying their own part. Then you're asking, them to pay basically what's your closing costs. Another way to think about it is, I guess, if they do need those closing costs covered, is that they're technically getting them financed through the loan as well. But most of it, as like when I try and explain it and tell them like, hey, like these are your closing costs. Like if you had all the cash to buy the house, you wouldn't be paying this. But since you're getting a loan, that's the cost of getting the loan.
Anybody else want to jump in there?
The time to talk about this is during your buyer consultation. And finding out, excuse me, I'm having lunch at the same time. And
Is it a sandwich?
Yeah.
No, it's nuts. He eats, like, Sandy packs him a bag of like nuts and other healthy things usually every day.
Yeah, other healthy stuff.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
So it's during the buyer consultation and finding out what they have to invest. And they're like, well, you mean our down payment? That's the time where you share with them they have down payment and they have closing costs, or they have their costs of the loan. So that includes prepaid property taxes, prepaid insurance. It includes their appraisal fee, maybe if there's a credit check fee or something like that, but it includes their half of the escrow, fees. Now we can ask sellers to pay it, but in this market, if we can avoid having sellers pay it, that's why I asked you, how much do you have total to invest? Not just your down payment, but also your closing costs.
Yeah, I love it. I think Troy hit everything. And Daniel, I like too. I think the key here is, Spencer, it has to be preventatively struck in the buyer consult. Like if you wait, like it has to be addressed in the buyer consultation appointment before we're actually putting in an offer. So we have to strike it there, because it's much harder to overcome it if it hasn't been brought up when we're writing the offer, right? Because then it's like you're arguing about the offer. But if you say up front and say, hey guys, we are, because what's shocking, especially at this time, we're in the summer right now. So we're in June is arguably the busiest month of the year, right, for real estate. And we're coming out of the coronavirus lockdown where all that pent-up demand has now pushed over into June. So as a result, we have the lowest amount of housing inventory that we've probably had in the last 40 or 50 years. Troy, you probably know that better than me. I mean, is our inventory that low? Is CB on the call? Or?
It's historically the lowest it's ever been.
Yeah, and I think nationwide that's true too. So quite frankly, if it's historically the lowest amount of housing inventory, that means that we have the lowest amount of housing supply that we've ever had. Buyers have never been in a position where they need to look more attractive to get an offer accepted than they do right now. And asking a seller for anything is not attractive, right? So my dad used to be the least politically correct real estate broker on the planet. And what he would used to say to me was, Brian, if you're a girl at the prom and you want to get asked to dance, you don't want to have a whole bunch of acne on your face. So if you ask for closing costs in this market, that's like a bunch of acne and no one's going to pick you to dance. And that's my dad would say it. And Troy, you knew my dad, right?
I didn't.
Oh, you didn't? Okay, that's probably the best.
I like him already.
I know, yeah. So that's how he taught it to me. So I never really could use that talking point with clients. So don't use that talking point with clients. But that's kind of the concept. And what's, I think, shocking right now is we are in the business. All of you guys are very up to date on how hot the real estate market is. Most realtors are. Like, we're not surprised anymore. We knew this was coming. We said it from day one that don't worry, we're going to have a very hot summer and prices are going to go up. They're not going to crash like everybody was saying. Remember, we promised you that, and guess what happened? That happened, right? Mm-hmm. So there was no guessing here. That's where we are. So we've known this. We've known this from day one since everything locked down for the coronavirus. Well, now that we're all out selling real estate willy-nilly again, guess what? The public still doesn't know it. Have you guys noticed that? Like, they're still surprised when you say, oh no, it's a red hot market.
Oh yeah.
They're shocked. It's crazy. There's still, I don't know if you guys ever look on Google or anything, but that's how I read the paper. I just look at my Google feed and I still see articles about how the housing market's going to crash. I mean, I look at who wrote them and it's people I've never heard of. It's crazy. Most of the major respected, media sources that you've heard of are all talking about how red hot the market is and how there's no inventory and there's multiple offers and prices are going through the roof. But for some reason, the public doesn't hear that. I went to go get a physical. I was supposed to get my physical this year, but it kept getting canceled because of COVID. So I finally go in, and first thing, and I got this new doctor. I've never met him before because my old doctor moved. And he said, so what do you do? I said, I'm in real estate. And he goes, oh, how are you guys doing? And I'm thinking, well, we're just, I just said whatever I normally would say just to get the conversation over with because that's who I am. But the point of the matter is, it was not lost on me that this guy has no idea. Like, if I were in a listing appointment with him, he would probably need to be reassured that it is a good time to list your house for sale. And buyers really don't know that this is not, this is no easier than it's been for the last 7 or 8 years of a market to negotiate for a home. So they need to be educated in a buyer consultation now more than ever. If we're just jumping into a showing and then trying to write an offer without educating them through a buyer consult, you're going to have a tough time with them.
You don't really want to be asking the buyer or asking the seller for anything. You really want to think about what you can give them, if anything, giving them possession after closing, giving them whatever you can give them.
That's exactly right. We want to write the cleanest offer human possible, no blemishes, no pimples, no acne. We don't want anything to stand out. We want it to be a very clean offer. And the minute you start asking for closing costs, I mean, you're just taking it right off the price there. So I think up front, Spencer, is the key. And quite frankly, if you're going to ask for closing costs, we're going to have to go up above on price. But that's, to cover it so they don't lose any money. And that in itself is a risk because now the house has a harder time appraising, and a good listing agent is gonna mention that to their client.
I had a buyer get a house last week, and he offered $5,000 over the asking price. He waived $30,000 in appraisal contingency. They offered to pay up to $5,000 because they're going VA, right? And so they're competing against other non-VA offers, and they want the house really bad, right? And so they even offered to pay $5,000 in termite repairs to get this house. So, and the agent told me that we had offers even higher than yours, but your buyer was willing to waive more appraisal contingency than that other party. $30,000 they were willing to waive.
Wow. Yeah. And so to me, we have to prep them up front, about what social class they're in. You're a buyer. And when you're a buyer in this world, you're like in a lower social class. Now, when you list your house for sale, you're in a great social class. Everybody loves you. You know what I mean? Your talk about, like, this is my politically incorrect conversation of the year. Probably not the best environment to talk about social classes. But the point of the matter is, when you're a seller, you have all the power, but the minute you turn into a buyer, you're a pauper. You're out there begging for food. And the last thing you can do is be demanding. The last thing you can do is be demanding. So you're out there on the street just asking for handouts. That's the market we're in. And I think you have to set that tone. That's why now more than ever, it's important to have a buyer consultation. And I think now more than ever, it's easier to do a buyer consultation because of this very vehicle right here. It is now socially responsible and acceptable to do a buyer consultation via video. And there's really no excuse for not conducting buyer consultations by video. I know at Eisenhower Coaching and Consulting, we have now shifted, and we are actually coaching all clients to set buyer consults by video, never in person. Even if COVID disappears, we're going to stay video on buyer consultations forever. Hopefully it sticks and everybody thinks it's politically correct. I'm sure there'll be some exceptions to that where you need to meet in person, especially with elderly folks, people that are just not comfortable with technology at all. But for the most part, we're going to always try first to go video. And, if it works with listings to some degree, we can do it with listings too. A little harder because they probably want you to see the house a little bit more frequently. But for buyers, we're going to make it a staple. So trying to get someone to come into the office before you show them property before COVID, that was hard. Like, that's hard to do. But now this is pretty dang easy. I mean, you just send them a link and say, hey, click on this really quick. And before we show it to you, let me just show you a few things. And then you have your buyer consult. And it's much easier to do. And we can preventatively strike a lot of these objections before they happen, because human beings don't like to be told they're wrong. The minute they say, can I ask for closing costs? It's harder to convince them that they can't than it is if you tell them and prevent them forever asking it. Because then they're going to say, well, my friends did it. Yeah, your friends did it pre-COVID. You know what I'm saying? Or they're going to start talking about all their friends, what they told them to do. But if we tell them that it's different right now up front, it should go away. Does that help, Spencer?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it's one of those arguments. A lot of times people will ask, a lot of times in real estate, hey, what's the script for overcoming this objection? And typically the best script to overcome the objection is to preventively strike it so it never comes up in the first place. Well, that's usually the case.
I think you're right, though. Like, I think I explained the part about it being a competitive market, and I just need to more specifically explain the part about the closing costs and how that does affect you in a competitive market.
Yeah. Up front, I would strike that one right out the bat, and let them know it's never been hotter. We've never had less inventory. It's never been more competitive on your end. So your offer needs to look absolutely perfect if we can help it. So, or it's going to be a long, hard fight. So good. Excellent. Okay.